Hey everybody, today we're bringing you a little different pool because we are not building this pool, we are redoing this pool. It's at a Holiday Inn in Kansas City, and we are doing our Ecofinish process to this old, it's not actually that old, it's under 10 years old. A lot of these hotel pools, after the plaster starts to fail, because they have a lot of chemistry swings with all the people and just all the traffic they get, they will take the cheap way, which is epoxy coating. And from the look of this old epoxy that's just peeling off in a lot of areas, there's at least 3 or 4 layers of epoxy that we're cutting through. So it doesn't last very long. My partner Zach, that does a lot of the pool refinishing with me, he does a lot of the hotels in Springfield, or used to, with epoxy, and it's a 2-year, maybe it buys you 3 at the most in a residential setting. And I'll just show you how bad it looks up close. I mean, look at the finish on this wall, how rough and honestly terrible it looks. And some of that's the plaster job, and the gunite pools, plaster jobs. You'll see better quality than this, but this is actually fairly typical of your hotel pools and stuff. And we are about to turn this thing around and make it look amazing. And the Ecofinish process, just to give you a little, I'm going to bring the whole thing to you, but we got to get it down to a smooth substrate. It can be concrete or the plaster. We can go over either one. And we take a clear epoxy that is engineered to penetrate. We do a first coat that's a penetrating coat. We cut it with acetone so it's very runny. We run that on. A little while later we put a full strength coat of epoxy over that. And then when that becomes tacky, we flock with a fire flame-throwing gun, a powder coat, a thermoplastic powder coat that actually melts into and bonds mechanically and chemically with that last layer of epoxy. And then we go over that again with kind of a beautification and evening out coat, where it's almost like, I would say, a Line-X or a Rhino bed liner in a pool. The advantage to that, obviously epoxy doesn't last very long. It's just junk. And it's just not really, it holds up better than any other paint, but it's not great for pool chemistry. And plaster or any other cement-based pool finish, cider, Crete, all these other things, they are susceptible to pH swings, very susceptible. So every time your pH is out of balance at all, basic or acidic, it's eating. I mean, if you put a little acid on a piece of plaster, it foams up, it's, eating it. And that's the problem. That's why plaster, in a perfect world, plaster is great, but we're not in a perfect world. Every time somebody gets in with, tanning oils or soap or anything on their skin, that's going to change the pH. A dog jumps in, that messes up the pH and messes up your water chemistry. But moreover, when we're not indoors, water, leaves, rain, storms, all that messes up your pH. So it's impossible to keep it balanced all the time. And that's why plaster is not the answer. And that's why on these ICF pools we've got the system. ICF is awesome. It's so much better than gunite for every energy saving reason, structural reason, but we're getting it dialed in right now. And by early next year, we're going to be doing training and everything else, because we're really redoing that end of the pool. The high-end pools, it's going to be the way to do it. But this is an easy one to show you up close and personal with how much better the Ecofinish is than all the other solutions to a gunite concrete pool. Gunite is just a term to describe a way that a concrete pool is made. ICFs are concrete pools as well. So we're gonna get into it right now. We're gonna have to get all suited up. This is a disgusting process to cut this all down. The Ecofinish is not that bad, but this part of the process is gross. So we're gonna get suited up and get to work. Like I said, even with vacuums on all of our grinders, this process is very disgusting. I turned it off before we were done because I felt sorry for my GoPro. Okay, after a long day of grinding, we've got all of the layers of ridiculous epoxy and down to the original plaster. We've repaired anything that needed it, and we are just about dry, and we're getting ready to start. It's about 9:30 at night. We've had a long day. Zach is over here getting ready to start mixing the epoxy. There's 2 coats of epoxy. The first coat is a bonding coat. It's mixed 50-50 with acetone, so it's very, very thin, and it really soaks in. we did an acid etch to open up the pores in the cement-based plaster and the concrete. And so now we'll do that coat tonight. We'll get up in the morning, put a full strength coat of epoxy on, and as soon as it tacks up, we will be ready for the Ecofinish, and I'll explain each one of those layers in more detail as we go. Okay, so after we get it all cleaned out, we have to acid etch the surface to profile it so the epoxy coats can penetrate and adhere perfectly to the surface. So we do that, and then we give it a good rinse, get it completely neutralized, and then we let it dry for a few hours. Once it's dry, Zach over here, he's going to mix up the first bonding coat of epoxy. The bonding coat, we actually cut 50-50 with acetone. You'll see when he starts mixing it, it's not much more viscous than water. It's very runny, and it's made to just soak into the concrete, penetrate deep down into the pores, and that's our first coat. Then we'll do another coat here in a little bit, actually usually the next day. And when we do that coat, it's an actual full strength coat that builds. All right, guys. So this coat here is very runny. I'll give you a close up before we finish this. Just the whole point is, it's the consistency of water with all that acetone in there. And the point is, it's going to soak in. You see how it's running down the hill here? I'm going to keep pushing it up the hill. And I'm trying to just penetrate. So all I want to do is get a good penetrating coat of epoxy on this wall tonight. And that can, before it gets outside of its cure time, we will chemically and mechanically bond a full strength coat with no acetone on in the morning. And then once that coat will kind of build on top of and flatten out and be really smooth. And then that coat is what we will, while it's still fairly tacky, we'll start our Ecofinish, which is the thermoplastic powder coat that melts into the epoxy. And we will take it, and after that first coat, we're pretty much done physically. The next coat is simply to make it real even and beautiful. It's just beautification, it's all it is. But anyway, I'm going to let Zach put the camera down and jump in here and help me because he's going to cut in the top edge and everything. But I just got to zip around the walls, and then we'll do the floor of the pool out, and we'll be done for the night. Okay, this is just a time lapse to just kind of show how we apply that first coat. We get it all on there, get it penetrating, and come back the next morning to do our full strength coat, which we actually have to dye so that we can make sure we get good coverage on that build coat. All right, so it's the following morning, and Zach is applying our flood coat or our top coat of the specially formulated epoxy. And this coat is full strength. There's no acetone cutting it. The pink tone is just a dye we put into it because it's very important that the flood coat evenly cover, and because it would otherwise be exactly the same color and tone as the undercoat, we wouldn't be able to see if we had a thin spot or something. So we just have this little powder dye that we put in. Everything's prepped. Well, like I said, it took an extra day of prep than we really hoped it would because the pool had been band-aided so many times that it was a ton of grinding, as you saw. But I'm going to jump on another roller and help him roll this out. Then it needs a couple 2 to 4 hours to tack up, and as soon as it's tacky, we will fire up the Ecofinish machine and make the magic happen. Okay, so this is just our time lapse of that process, and it's just really crucial that you do all of these steps, as perfectly as possible, because this epoxy bonding properly, and then this is what's going to bond to the Ecofinish, and it just makes an amazing finish. But it's all about how well you prep and how well you apply these coats, just how much it's bonded to the substrate. Okay guys, we just fired up the machine and Zach is starting the Ecofinish. I have no idea if my mic is going to pick up over the sound of that thing. That is 800,000 BTUs, and the powder's in that bin over there. So he's putting the first coat on, he's just melting the powder into that tacky epoxy. So that's what he's doing. And after this first coat, we'll do a beautification coat. Okay, while Zach's getting started on the Ecofinish, I'm going to give you guys a quick tour of the equipment. We use a 185 CFM compressor. This is our first dryer. It's a dehumidifier. It takes the moisture out of the air, and it's got an oil and water separator built into it. That one is powered. We run it off the battery. We've got two 100-pound propane bottles, and we'll burn off one then the other. On bigger jobs, we'll run them parallel to each other so that we don't discharge one fast enough to freeze it up. But on this one, it's not that big. We won't have time to do that. Everything runs in here to our bin, to our machine, and there's our powder. Okay, so I'll just kind of give you a close-up. You can see he's doing the first coat, which is kind of the flocking coat, where we're melting that thermoplastic powder into our partially cured tacky epoxy. And you can almost see it when you get up close. I mean, this is just showing you guys how even and pretty it is, but you can almost see it when you get up close. It bonding as it's melting in. You can almost just see it grab into that epoxy on that first coat. And the cool thing is you can actually just walk on it immediately. As soon as it cools off, it's almost like hot glue in that respect. I mean, once it's cooled off, it's cured, it's done. And you can see him kind of cutting in. That's a special silicone paper and tape that doesn't burn, so it's pretty handy to have. And you can see here Zach's just kind of working around the lights and all this stuff, and I'm just kind of showing you guys close-ups of the wall. It really has a consistency, I would say, of like a smoother, softer feeling like Line-X bed liner, or a Rhino line, like a bed liner, but it again has a lot more chemically balanced product that's UV stable, doesn't fade, doesn't react with any acids or bases. It's just really solid product. The bond is amazing. It's just so much more bulletproof than any other substrate, or other waterproofing that you can do to a pool. So we're really happy to have it. Like I said, I can't wait to bring you Ecofinish on ICF pools, but right now, it's winter time. They're getting to be winter, and having some of these hotel pools to do is just kind of nice to keep everything moving on bad days. Like literally, I think the 2 weeks leading up to this pool and the next one we're doing, it's rained like 4 out of 5 days, which barely can get anything done on our outdoor projects right now. So you can see he's doing the second coat. You see the left side over here is not as even, so you can kind of see that second coat. Sometimes we do 2.5 coats, just really kind of dust over it the last time, just to really even it up nice. Even though once the water's in there, it looks awesome just how it is now. But we like to do it kind of all the way, get it really even. And you see here we did one more time lapse. I think my battery died before it kind of got all the way done, but you can see we're just kind of how the whole thing does. This gun, we have two guns, and this is our big gun, and it's 800,000 BTUs. And it can burn, it can cover 900 square feet an hour, so it really lays the product. Our other one's more of a detail gun for like hot tubs and steps, and I think it only does about 250 feet an hour, so this one's awesome. Alright, so the really cool thing is with Ecofinish, unlike other plasters or other things, the second we're done shooting the gun, we can put water on it. There's not a lot of heavy startup or anything. Okay, guys, we're at the end of day 3 on this redo Ecofinish at the Holiday Inn in Kansas City at the airport, and we're done. Obviously, we're putting the water in it, and that is one of the cool things. It's not one of the more important things, but it is one of the cool things about Ecofinish. The second we're done, the minute we turn the machine off, we can throw water in it. There's no startup that's overly important. There's no brushing it 3 times a day like with plaster for 2 weeks while it cures. We also don't have to fill it up right away. With plaster, you got to fill it up instantly, or it starts to check crack and everything else within a couple days because it needs to be in water to cure. This product is much more versatile in that way, and the big things about Ecofinish, now that you've seen how it installs, and maybe you can kind of understand a little more about the chemical and physical bond that each coat makes to the substrate and to the next layer. That's why it is so durable. That's why it's just darn near bulletproof. It's only as good as the substrate under it, and that's why we did so much more work on this pool. It just looked like so bad, so, like it looked like crap, and it's, you know, we got it back way better than I would have expected. It's really good. But the big things about Ecofinish that I haven't really gotten into yet, pH neutral. Every cement-based waterproofing and most gel coats that go on fiberglass pools, pH ruins them over time. And really bad pH can ruin them fairly quickly. This stuff, you can pour acid right on it. It's not going to hurt it. It's pH neutral. It's durable. It doesn't react with acids or bases. Secondly, it's also UV stable. Vinyl liners have a lot of that going for it, obviously on the lower end in-ground pools, but they fade really quickly and pretty dramatically. You won't even notice it till you see the liner come out, how much they fade in just 5 or 6 years. This stuff won't fade. So it's kind of a lifetime product if the substrate is good under there, which is something that we can't always help. On our new pools, the ICF pools, there's only a couple guys around that are doing Ecofinish to ICF pools. It's kind of a new marriage of products, and we are going to be the only ones in the country bringing you Ecofinish on a composite substrate. We're not going to be using plasters or cements that can fail behind this awesome product. We're going to really marry a couple products that are going to make it just bulletproof. And we're going to be bringing all that to you over the winter. Like I said, we're going to have some training come next year. But in the meantime, just wanted to really kind of wrap this, show you finished product. I mean, you saw how bad it looked before, and this is what it can look like in just a couple of days. So really, really awesome product. Recommend anybody that's redoing a fiberglass pool or a concrete wall pool. This product is the best product by far, no question. And it'll give you a lot more life than any other, coating. So anyway, I'll see you guys next time.